Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about how do you hold the modern cello bow. And we're also going to be playing a little bit of an exercise from a book of exercises that I've been using a lot lately called the Alwyn Schroeder 170 Foundational Studies for Cello. So this is kind of a compilation book, and I always, especially lately, I've been experimenting and adding these in as technical exercises and etudes for my students. And I gotta say, they're written by cellists. All of these etudes in this book are written by cellists. They're written for cellists, and I have noticed them to be very effective in teaching the cello. They're very intuitive, and with a little bit of explanation, the point of each of these exercises is very clear, and it's very easy to execute these exercises like on the cello. And so it seems like a funny thing to say, but when you're playing the cello and you're trying to do exercises or find exercises for the cello to supplement your learning or self-teach or all that stuff, it's very helpful to look for exercises that are actually written by cellists. And I think that this is a good compilation of them. You got some Lee, you got some Dotzauer, you got some other stuff, and something I like about this Schroeder is it starts very manageable. Like the stuff that's at the beginning of the book is very manageable for a absolute beginner, and then if you are not an absolute beginner, you can kind of skip those couple of exercises, and then you get into some stuff where you're playing more notes. But we're gonna get to that in a second. So let's talk about holding the bow. All right. So this is going to be a little bit of a thing, but I'm going to kind of zoom in here, and we're just going to talk about it. Okay. So first things first. Whenever you're working with the bow, what you want to do is you want to just make sure you see how I'm kind of holding it with my left hand, right? This could look like this. This could also look like this. You're just kind of holding it like this. Don't touch the hair, though. Okay. So you don't want to touch the hair. You generally don't want to touch the hair. Okay. So you've got your frog. You're holding it with your left hand. I'm going to put this blue thing up here so that you can see it a little bit better. All right, but now with our frog here, this is the frog. This whole area right here, this is the frog. We have the button. We have the actual frog itself. We've got this little metal part right here. You see it's kind of shiny. And then we have a grip up here, and we have maybe this could be plastic, maybe this is, metal, leather, whatever it is, okay? And also I'd just like to point your attention out to this little ridge right here. This is going to be important, okay? You see where the frog actually meets the bow, that makes a little ridge. And that is important to remember because that's where our thumb is going to go, on the other side, of course. So what we want to do is, it's very simple, okay? Let me just position this a little bit differently. This is harder than holding the bow. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our hand here. We're going to touch our middle finger on this metal part. It's just going to touch it. It's going to sit right on the edge. Notice how it's not here, it's not like far off, it's also not like up here. You don't want this dainty thing. You just want it to go right on the edge. Just right on the edge, right? Your fingertip. The fingertip right there is just gonna go beep. And then this third finger here, or your middle finger, if you're, not a pianist, you're gonna wanna put it on this button thing. Don't do that. It just should hang out kind of somewhere around here. I like to think about it kind of also touches the very edge. The fingertip touches the edge of the bow. And then your pinky is just going to sit right there on the edge. Notice how it's not out here. Notice how it's not up here or anything weird. It just sits right there. Your first knuckle of your pinky has contact with this stick. And I mean first knuckle as in this part right there. It's going to grip it like that. All right? And then you see on the back here with our thumb, that ridge that I pointed out before that you can kind of see on this, your thumb is actually just going to go right on it. So it's going to go right on that ridge, and we're going to have it nicely bent. You'll notice I'm going to give you as much of a view of it as I can, but you notice it's not here, and it's not here, and it's definitely not here or here. It's up on that ridge. The pad of my thumb is going to be touching it, and we're going to have it nicely bent, right? This is just something to remind ourselves. So, again, in order, we have middle finger on the metal part, fingertip touching the edge, third finger rests down, pinky, first knuckle, grips the back of the stick, index finger just kind of hangs out. We'll get to that later. And then also your thumb, the pad of the thumb on the ridge where the frog meets the bow. So, again, once you set this up, you go middle finger on the metal part. You have ring finger sitting there. You have your pinky, first knuckle, contact with the bow. Your index finger here is just going to kind of hang out. You'll notice, again, first knuckle, it just sits there. Again, we'll get to that in a second. Now, your thumb, the pad of the thumb is sitting on the part where the frog meets the stick. The ridge there, it's going to sit on that, the pad of the thumb, and it's going to be nicely bent. Nicely bent. Not here, not here. And again, when we're over here, we don't want this. We don't want this, right? You know, we don't want this. All right, we want this, which is middle finger on the middle part. We have our ring finger. We have it sitting there. We have our pinky, first knuckle, contact with the stick. We have our index finger chilling over here, which we'll get to in a second. Thumb, pad of the thumb on that ridge where the frog meets the stick. Amazing. All right, so let's talk about this index finger here. So when you're putting this down, you kind of want this first knuckle right there, this part right here, to just hang out on there. And the reason for this why is because we're going to be pushing into our bow like this. And we're going to talk more about that in a second, but it's just, you got to have a good bow hand to be able to do this. So we have our good bow hand. We're thinking about that. And our good bow hand, of course, is this. We're going to stack it up one more time. One more stack. Notice holding with the left hand, right? So that you can take some pressure off. We're going to put our middle finger on the metal part. We're going to hang out our third finger here, touching the edge. Pinky, first knuckle, touches the stick. Contact with the stick. Otherwise than that, it just hangs out right here. Not up here. Not over here. Right here. Right? Not over here. You're not holding anything up with your pinky right now. All right? You're just going over here. And your thumb is going to be on the ridge where the frog meets the stick, the pad of the thumb, and it's going to be nicely bent. As we say in the business, it's the cello C. All right? So then we have this over here. Now your index finger, we have this first knuckle contact. And we're actually going to just lower this right onto the string, right? And what we're going to do now is, you'll see over here, instead of being like this, right? This is falling away from the cello. We don't want to play out of the cello. We want to play into the cello, okay? So when you're going into the cello, if you think about it, we're going into the cello. And what that means is we're going to lift our elbow up, all right? We're going to lift our elbow and play into the cello, into this first finger, into the, or I should say index finger, and into our first knuckle, and by extension, into the cello. Not into your wrist, not into your thumb, that's super, no. We have our middle finger, it sits on the metal part. We have our ring finger that sits kind of on over here. Pinky, first knuckle, contact with the stick. Index finger just chilling with the first knuckle, right? Thumb on that ridge where the frog meets the stick. Amazing, and we've got that, and we sit it down, and then we want to push forward a little bit, right? We don't want to play out of the cello, we want to play into the cello. Always playing into the cello, okay? Not our wrist, though. It's not here. Wrist isn't here. It's not here. Nice neutral wrist. We're just going to lift our elbow up. We're going to play into the cello. Okay, so now that we have a good grasp on how the bow hand works, what we're going to do is we're going to play exercise number 1 of the Schroeder. I'm going to link this in the description below. It's actually available on IMSLP, which is a fantastic resource if you don't want to buy a lot of old music. It's pretty much a repository for public domain sheet music from all centuries. So it's pretty awesome. This is an old book, you know. I don't really know how old, but I do know it's old. So let's talk about this. We have our Schroeder exercise number 1. You'll notice, if you look at it, it's a whole lot of open strings. It's just a whole lot of open strings. So I'm just going to notate this for you. We have 1, we have 2, we have 3, and we have 4. Right there in the beginning lays out your strings. So the first 2 measures of this are going to be 2 A's. And then we have 2 D's, which is the second string. And then we have 2 G's, which is the third string. And then we have 2 C's, which is the fourth string. You'll notice on cello, we go top string, 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's always 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so A, D, D, G, C. Cool. So now let's look at this etude one more time and let's look at it how it looks. We have a lot of notes here and they're all whole notes. So let's play it. We go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 2. And so on and so forth. So I'm showing you the music, of course, right now, but hopefully print this out, look at it. I'm just pointing some things out with this. I would recommend doing it with your music because right now we are going to look at my bow hand. We are going to look at my bow hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you see it's a whole lot of open strings. We go from whole notes, we go to half notes, and then we play quarter notes. And you notice the instructions say whole bow, but it's pretty much use as much bow as you can, especially with those quarter notes. You don't want to. It's not an exact science. So with this, you'll notice we're doing one extra thing. We've got our playing into the cello. We've got our good bow hand, which you'll notice I maintained that the middle finger stays on the middle most of the time. And then we have our pinky and we have our thumb. It's nicely bent where the ridge, where the stick meets the frog. We have it right on there. Everything looked good. We had a nice neutral wrist. We were playing into the cello. Now you'll notice the strings are not, it's the straight string is kind of, it just doesn't make that much sense. But when we have a straight string here, you'll know that on the bridge, where the bridge meets the string, that is what we call straight. So let me just show that to you right now. You see how the string is going right into the bridge right here? And so this is straight right here. Here's an exercise you can do. You put the bow hair on the string like this and on the bridge, and you rotate it up and down, trying to keep the hair as straight as you possibly can on the bridge, right? And you'll notice there's quite a bit of an arc here. There's quite a bit of an arc. And so in order to use this to play straight, what we have to do is we have to open with our elbow. So you can try this. You hold your bow with your left hand so that you're not holding in your right hand. And what you're going to do is you're going to push the door open. You're going to push the door open. Pay attention to my elbow here. Push the door open. Notice how I extend with my elbow. I'm not pushing anything with my shoulder. I'm not doing anything weird. I'm just going ba-bam. I'm pushing it forward. I'm going pushing it forward. It's the same thing with our bow, especially on this first note. Open. Look at that. Look at us opening this elbow. 2, 3, 4. Okay, now I'm going to close it a little bit. Now, to open with the elbow. And notice what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to keep this nice and straight. Trying to keep it straight. Open. So, the third thing in our bow toolbox is not only holding the bow, but opening with our elbow. And when you play this etude, Schroeder number 1, you need to think about 3 things. The first thing is holding your bow. You know, we've got a middle finger on the middle. We've got our ring finger right here, pinky, first knuckle, contact with the stick, hanging out on the frog. We've got our index finger, the first knuckle, just chilling over here. We've got our thumb on the ridge of the frog where it meets the stick. And then once we go over here, the second thing is we are always playing into the cello by lifting our elbow. And then the third thing is making sure that when we play the notes, we are opening with our elbow and not with our shoulder. We are opening with our elbow. Remember, you're opening the door. You're going to go. Okay, hopefully now you have a good idea of how to hold the cello bow. I would just run through these steps just like I've run through so many times today. And I think the best practice with an etude like this one is to just play it. Don't judge yourself too hard and just sit there and, saw away for a while and it'll start to make sense. You're starting to look for that straight bow. You're looking for that good bow hold. You're looking for not clamping down with your thumb. There's some, a lot of things that you can work on something like this, but I think the purpose of an etude like this is not to be scientific about it, but it's to get the muscles. It's to get those muscles and just get them in shape and get them ready to be doing more stuff in the future. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I really would appreciate a like and a thumbs up and maybe a subscribe. I'm going to try and make a little bit more of these technique videos in the future, and yeah, see you next time.